Nobel Prize. He was given the nomination with a colleague originally, and whenever it came to his attention that she was not going to be receiving credit for her work on the project, he went ahead and made sure that she would receive credit, and that is why she received her first Nobel Prize in physics based on the radiation phenomena. Later on, her goal was to establish a laboratory at the University of Paris. He was offered the position there as chair of the department under the circumstance that they would eventually create this laboratory, which was done in 1906. She also had the opportunity to become the chair of that department after her husband's death. And she continued on to make sure that the laboratory was finished, and later another laboratory would be completed in her name. Her Nobel Prizes, as stated a minute ago, she won her first Nobel Prize in physics with her husband and his colleague on the radiation phenomena. This is wherever they were studying the amount of radiation emissions from certain elements. And like I said, they developed the radiation phenomena, which won them the Nobel Prize in physics. Later on, she would be awarded the chemistry Nobel Prize. This was on her own. This is due to her discovery of radium and polonium. But as stated earlier, without the recognition in the physics department with the Nobel Prize, there's a good chance that she would have never been recognized as the chemistry Nobel Prize winner either, because the physics Nobel Prize was the first Nobel Prize a woman has ever won. She is also one of the only two people to still maintain two Nobel Prize, to be a two Nobel Prize winner. As far as academics, as stated earlier, her goal was to establish a laboratory. I apologize. Her goal was to establish a laboratory to further scientific research. After she took over as the University of Paris's chair, she furthered the laboratory and developed it there. After she left there, she went to the Pasteur Institute, which also developed a laboratory. Finally, there is an institute called the Curie Institute, which is still working to this day. It is founded based on her and what she did in both the scientific community and for women's rights. Her influences on the world were great. Yes, she found a lot of scientific data that allowed her to find those two elements, but in all honesty, those were probably not her greatest accomplishments in her life, nor was the physics Nobel Prize. Her greatest accomplishment was probably her ability to give women the ability to work in the scientific community and be considered credible. As stated before this, there was no other women to win the Nobel Prize, and she was discriminated against highly for this originally. And she also was almost not given credit for the first Nobel Prize because they did not think a woman had the ability to establish this. So as she continued to work, she developed these institutions that we just talked about. She actually had a student that became one of the first members of the French Department of Sciences. That's the wrong name for it, I apologize, but it was a great honor. Curie was actually denied that by 2 votes, which was disappointing, but as you can tell, her effect continued on. Along with that, the Curie Institute's still making discoveries in the scientific field to this day, and that is all thanks to her and her research.